Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us at the 9th Annual Startup Boston Weekend. Woo! Our mission with this conference is simple: to bring together the entire startup community across every industry, department, and funding stage. Startup Boston exists to connect, educate, inspire this ecosystem while serving as a trusted, unbiased guide to the best resources that can help you start and scale your startup or your team. My name is Kai, and I'll be your host for today. But before we kick things off, I want to give a huge thank you to Suffolk University for hosting this conference. They have hosted us very generously for the past 3 years. In addition to that, if you're interested in exploring entrepreneurship, they offer a variety of programs and opportunities. You can check them out after the session up on the 5th floor. They have their table. And not only that can they help you in your own community, you also can have the chance to help out because they have their own community of entrepreneurial students who are also always looking to learn more and grow themselves. And for today, we have our very, very interesting session, Engineering with Guardrails. I'm sure throughout this, you're going to have lots and lots of questions. One thing we will ask, we will have a special Q&A section in the panel, so please hold your questions until then. And then after that, we will ask you to raise your hand. We will have a mic runner who'll come up, give you a mic, and you could proudly declare your words to the entire world. But otherwise, thank you so much again for attending Startup Boston Week. So on to our speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this exciting session as part of Startup Boston Week. This is actually my third year with the Startup Boston. And before we get started, let's make sure that we are in the right session. So, engineering with guardrails, innovating in regulated spaces. So, today's session, we're gonna focus on 3 important things for the startups: speed, compliance, and innovation. So we wanna explore basically how startups can be innovative while they're not slowing down themselves, and at the same time, they can navigate through the regulatory and compliance that's needed if it's needed for their startups. So, and our focus is not just on healthcare, it's on fintech, healthcare, AI, and consumer hardware. And our goal is to give you a practical solution and strategies to balance between these 3 key items that I just said: speed, compliance, and innovation. So before we get started, before we jump into getting insights from our panelists, so let's get to know them, and I start with myself. I am Rabeh Majidi. I'm myself a founder of a medical device company located in Newton, Massachusetts. We are a medical device, class 1 medical device company focusing on remote patient monitoring for orthopedic rehabilitation. And let's start with the panel. Ilsa.
Hi, I'm Ilsa Wiebeck with Simbax. I have a focus on the commercialization side, so I'm not an engineer, but I play one on TV. And at Simbax, we're a design, development, and commercialization firm, and so I work very closely on regulated products every day, and like to think about it not necessarily from a technical side of it, but all the stakeholders involved that are going to be touching or utilizing that technology one way or another in the future. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice to meet you all. Very happy to be here. My name is Andre. I'm a founder of DocRouter AI. We do document processing for messy business documents that are unstructured with language models. And we're not specific to an industry. We have customers in medical space, insurance, supply chain. So I get into contact with the things like HIPAA and SOC 2 and high trust. And I know different people have different experience on this panel, but my experience is more focused towards those frameworks.
Hello, this is Marjan, and nice to meet you all. I'm founder and CEO of Leaf Guardian. We are a hard tech medical device company, which means we have both the device itself and software. Our our services is providing pressure injury prevention for hospitals, especially in ICU units, trauma cares, but we have some demand from RU units and all. And we help for not only detecting and monitoring patients, but for the facilitate the documentation of care of the patients. Thank you, and I hope it would be a great talk.
Thank you, Marjan. Now that we know our panelists, let's get started with knowing our audience. So, how many of you are in the earliest stage of your startup in pre-seed and seed stage? Please raise your hand. And for those further along, who is in growth or scaling stage? Me. I'm in seed stage, sorry. So raise your hand if you are a founder or co-founder already. And raise your hand if you are an engineer or you're in marketing or you're helping startups. Interesting. And how many investors we have in the room?
He says 0.
Oh, nice. Okay, since our last question is related to the investment. So, okay, now that we know about the room, we were assuming the folks who just joined us, they're also founders. So let's get started with the question. I'll start with asking a question from Ilsa. So what's the common mistake you see startups make with compliance?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake or the biggest pitfall I see, and I'm going to talk mostly from the healthcare products space, is really around understanding what the compliance landscape is going to look like for your product. We have clients that come in and companies that I've worked with that they're like, this is our instructions for use, this is our plan of how our product's going to be, how we're going to launch it, we're going to tell FDA what we're going to do with it, and then we're going to go forward and launch. And I'm like, well, there's this whole bucket around compliance with the regulations that maybe the thing you want to build, FDA doesn't think about it the same way you do. And also, what's your quality management system look like? Have you even put that into place, and are you ready to be compliant for an audit down the road? So I think the biggest mistake is not having enough information about the steps you need to have in place, or the regulations or the requirements that you need to have in place to be ready to move to the next step. We've had clients that we've done a regulatory review for them, and they've actually pivoted the way that their product was going to be used in the marketplace because of the pathway to get to market was different than they thought. And you want to, as we've all heard before, fail fast and cheap, right? You want to know as much as you can, as early as you can, so you can address those issues before you spend money on something that maybe maybe it was misdirected or could have been altered or shifted to be more effective and more efficient and more effective down the line.
Thank you. So let me go to the next question. I want perspective from Marjan and Andre at the same time from healthcare perspective and from non-healthcare perspective. So how do you balance, so the three keywords I said, speed, compliance, innovation. So how do you balance, let's focus on two at the moment. How do you balance between moving fast and staying compliant?
Yeah, I can start. So let's say for document processing, the type of frameworks you have to deal with are about information sharing. For example, for HIPAA, it's patient data, it's securing it, using it maybe in an anonymized way if it's has to be made public, or for accounting, SOC 2. If you're a startup, you absolutely want to innovate and to move fast. So it depends. Like for example, for HIPAA data, the requirement is very specific that you have to protect the data in any circumstance. For SOC 2, you have to build a trust with your customer. So if your customer has trust in you, in some sense, SOC 2 is not mandatory, but it builds confidence in your business if you get to be SOC 2 compliant. Sometimes it's possible to just do a security questionnaire with a customer, or maybe you get to sign up the customer and begin the process of SOC 2 compliance as you begin to deliver the product with the customer. So things are different depending on which approach you take. And as a startup, you do want to make technical progress quick and kind of be aligned with the compliance standards, but not kind of be blocked. So for example, one case when speed and rules are in conflict, like one consulting customer I had over last year, it was a web application, and you had to build a production pipeline and a debug pipeline, and both of them had patient data, so it had to be HIPAA compliant. The customer was very early, did not need to get a formal certification at this point. But the risk with this is that, for example, the debug data, maybe you could lose sight of the fact that that needs to be HIPAA protected also. And the customer was going to get to accelerate compliance by talking to an external vendor, to D-Rate in this case. But there's many other vendors, about 10 vendors out there. So at the point that vendor comes in, the task was going to be to kind of figure out if you need to anonymize the debug pipeline. So I would say to move fast, you have to figure out how quick you need to get a formal certification in what you do. You need to bring external help, and need to figure out your customer relationship to see basically on a case-by-case basis for accounting how to deal with it.
Thank you. So from our perspective, first of all, I want to say to move in a speed, there should be a definition for speed, especially in the current era. I believe there is a kind of misconception over the speed of a company or a startup need to grow. And it might come at a high stakes, which is like falling the startup altogether, especially if you're working in healthcare industry. So for that, you should make sure you know your area and what is needed and what you need to comply to. For us, we should both be mindful of HIPAA for sure, because we deal with the patient's data, but FDA as well. And for the early traction of the startup, especially, you need to have a traction and work with the hospitals. So how we did that is we make sure all the equipments that we are providing for our first prototype, it's over the shelf, but they are HIPAA compliant itself. For example, for data collection was Samsung Galaxy A13, which is already in the list of HIPAA compliant units that we use it as a processor. And then you need to make sure your pathway into FDA is clear. And for that, it's I'm recommending myself because it helps us so much to file the 513G request, which is written request to FDA, to make sure you are aligned. So you wouldn't build your hypothesis fast and just build your, dedicate your resources to build a product that later you see that, oh my God, it's not what I expected as a go-to market pathway for me, and I cannot deal with it. So it would be a failure. So if there is more questions around it, I would love to answer, but for now I think it's good, we can cover the rest of the session.
I like the part when you emphasize about the definition of the speed for startups. It actually puts a lot of pressure on us, but we know that we have to be moving forward fast. So for another part of comparison, so maybe Elsa, you want to bring your insight to this. How can startups still be innovative while they stick to that rules and compliance?
Yeah, I think try to do as much as you can in terms of being creative and innovative and pushing the boundaries before you get to the point where you're going to lock everything in. Because once you're headed down the pathway of starting your design history file and really understanding what is going to go into the design and manufacture, validation, and verification of your product, you can do any of those iterations you want in any context you want, obviously following ethical rules and all that. But so I think trying to do as much iteration as you can, build prototypes quickly, do as much as you can early on with users and feedback. I talk to a lot of clinicians and patients about new technology, just when they're even kind of, napkin sketches or little graphic representations. Did a big project recently. We just had a little cartoon drawings of what the product was, and that's where you get feedback from the potential users about how this is actually going to work in the real world. So you get that feedback up front. You can adjust to understand what could be like commercially viable, and then reflect back on the regulatory pathway that you need to be successful in moving it down the line. So a lot of that quick iteration, get the brainstorming in, get as many advisors in, any feedback in from all of your main stakeholders, and be creative about that stakeholder group too, not just the patient. It's like the patient and the caregiver and their care team and the nurses that come by, or the doctors, or the psychiatrists that deal with orthopedic patients. Try to think how broad you can think about that overall care team and the folks that might have an interaction with that product, so you can be innovative in that early stage before locking things down.
I would say this is very, if you talk about the companies who are interested in AI, this is very important for them. I've seen a lot of companies that they have their own innovation and they're following the compliance, and then out of sudden they're like, we want to add AI into this too. So then it's going to change all the equations. So that's a very,
I wanted to add something here that, first of all, I believe that in healthcare industry, there is so much room for innovation, especially for the health of AI. Now we are able to achieve this innovation right now. The healthcare industry, it's highly regulated because some basic purposes, which is make sure everyone is accountable and there is a standards that we can have provide a standard care to the patients. But because of that, there was some certain of the level of the activities or functions that you could do without having the AI. But right now you could have it, and it's the door is open now, it's unlocked. But one of the issues I noticed is that the startups would start an idea. It's a good idea, but because now AI is trendy, they want to attach AI into it. Doesn't work. So don't do that. If you want to, please don't do that. Make sure, first of all, if you are interested into the healthcare industry, read Title 21 of the Code of Federal Regulation. Make sure you understand all of that. And if you are medical device, it's between, I think the code's 800. I have a note, I will tell you about that. That you make sure you know the titles and regulations. Then you can, because now you have the industry, you can innovate with this space, because okay, here's my landscape. I can run, here is a path for me. And generally, again, best of luck to the people who just want to attach AI to themselves, that it would stick to the wall. But I believe it's not, because you don't have the true understanding of the pain and how you can address the custom design solution for that one.
Yeah, can I add to that real quick? Just because of the, I think that's a good point. Is just to say that you have AI that you want to add to it. I would also say, in the medical space, look at what has already been done with AI to understand even what FDA and the regulators have allowed. I'm happy to be wrong on what I'm going to say next, but I think there's only one product out there that helps make actual decisions with AI, and it's for an eye condition. I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact details right now, but it's something that's very low risk, but there's not enough providers that can actually do this work, and so FDA said, all right,
we're gonna be second.
All right, they'll be second. But then if you're in radiology,
Yes.
there's hundreds of AI-enabled tools that are out there. And so you can layer on, the AI is the product. So rather than having a product and saying, oh, let's just have AI involved, you have to understand what's the actual, the unmet need and the niche that you're filling, that your AI is actually doing something for you. And then within the context of what it's going to be possible in terms of what FDA will allow, or you can push the boundaries on FDA. Just know what your pathway is going to be. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was going to say these are very exciting times. Actually, it's a lot easier to innovate. There's AI that can be used part of your programming. You can do vibe coding a lot. You can review your code with AI. It's great for engineers. Projects that used to take 3 months take a week or half a week right now. So there's huge wave of innovation coming, and now I don't know how it's going to impact regulations as a framework, but for sure it's going to be impacted. You can see the companies that build software stacks to help with evaluations, they already embed AI in the document processing. So it's also simpler to kind of keep track of whether you're on track with your compliance. So for the dock router, being a horizontal platform means that you can have customers with different security requirements. I say requirements for transportation are going to be different for requirements for insurance or for medical or for legal. But you can make a lot of progress with the customers that have the right requirements for you, and then the feature is portable to the other domains. So it's a game of figuring out how to get the data from the customers and how to find the right pilots to kind of build on that, so that when you have to go to a more strictly regulated environment with patient data, for example, then you're ready and you can make quick progress.
I just have a very quick add here. It's a good news. And in May, in fact, this year, FDA has added the ELSA AI to their system to keep up with the speed. So that's that. And then again, if you are interested and if you are working on it, just again, Title 21 of the Code of Federal Regulations, parts 800 to 898. You can get everything that you need if you are 510K exempt or not, what regulations you need to follow and all. Here you, Rob.
Yeah. So since you explained all of this to us, so I asked the next question for you. So what kind of documentation or testing has saved the time for you?
First of all, is that I would say preclinical, now I'm clinical, but before that it was preclinical, the good line of communication with my client, which is hospitals, was so important. Because each hospital has their own internal regulations that it's not publicly available to everyone. And if I want to provide our product and services to them, I should fully understand that. The second one, if you have that line of conversation open, make sure you have a conversation over the ethical committee of the hospital. It's necessary to, again, have that. It's like your HIPAA and FDA before you go through them. And the first step of the collaboration after you sign a collaboration contract with them is to your proposal will go toward the ethical committee, and again they might decline it. So all the deal would be down, like it's all gone. And for the documentation, it was different from the different hospitals that we have talked to. And we collaborated with the ones that I make sure we could provide the best of the product and service to them to our capabilities. Because as a startup, again, you have limited resources. So just like having that, again, it's not a great privilege to have, because like, again, there's another obstacle in your path. Documentation, just can I have time to explain what we do, or no? Just
a minute.
Okay, perfect. So what we do, we are in fact monitoring the patients with the thermal temperature mapping, and we would say like their repositioning, how they have position and schedule and document that. And then we have the areas that it's gonna be a pressure injury. So we detect the early signs of pressure injuries, which is ischemia or blood flow disruption, which is not possible to do it with the naked eye, or even the stage 1 or 2, they usually guesswork it with a red sign, which is all guesswork. That's why even at the core of our product is the AI itself, to not even machine learning, but physics informed part of it. So the documentation, now we have the logging of the data of the patient, but we have all the visual parts incorporated into them. So the reporting system, again, if you have a conversation with the hospital, you know how to manage that. So that's easy part. How to classify that and provide the report in what format to the hospital. Because don't assume, like, for example, a PDF or just like applications that you think it's popular is good for them. It might be a disaster. So just ask.
Thank you. Yeah, Jeff.
So also engineering documentation, right? So the typical process is you have a PRD, you have a system design and architecture design, you have unit tests. All that was done before, but now you have tools like Cloud Codes and the Cursor, these tools have become better and better just in the past month. So when you use Cloud Code, it's smart to just have it first focus on the design piece and have that set up, have it design the unit tests that you need, and even implement those ahead of time, and then loop the unit tests in so that when you vibe code the actual body of code, you check with the unit tests. Even the agent can itself run the unit test for you. And it's amazing how fast you can do code. It's a complete change from even 3 months ago.
So it seems to be a scary process to everyone. So let me ask this question. When does it make sense to bring outside compliance person to help startups?
I didn't.
Ilsa?
I chose to not, because I believe as a startup, your core competency is so important to keep, and the learning curve for the core team is so important. You test the waters, and in fact, I could test my employees. Their, like, what is their like a strength, because you know something, you put it in your resume, but it might show different, and you might have a genius in you that because you haven't worked in a startup setting, it wasn't like come up, because you can't do anything. So I didn't do that. And there is another thing. For startups in healthcare, it's crazy expensive codes. For example, $1 million minimum, if you only guesswork, you're gonna be category type 2 for the validation and just like prototyping for you. That's a code. And this is the best code I get from I think it's Glass House from Indiana, state of Indiana. And because there is a conception that as a medical device company, you're gonna reap lots of money after you go to market. So now you should put down money and invest. So everyone that, maybe I'm hostile here, please don't quote my name or anything. That was my just experience. So they will just charging it. And I'm engineer, and I have a great, I'm so fortunate because I was exposed in many different like engineer perspectives. So I have a great networks of engineers. So I didn't have that issue, and I just sourced that from my network. But again, if you are in healthcare industry, make sure you have two sources. Physicians, so that's your internal champion. If you're presenting to physicians, unless you are not a physician, you don't have that much credibility. Even though you start all your work and there is like lots of independent studies there. Let the doctor talk. And you have your source of engineers, or you should be very rich, not rich like you have $5 million minimum that you are ready to burn it and not see it. That rich.
Yes, then I would recommend work with Simbex.
Well, I both agree with you and gently disagree with you in the context that I do agree that as the CEO and as the team that you're working on, you need to understand everything that's going on. You need to be an expert in what's in front of you. You need to understand the codes. You need to understand what steps need to take. you need to take to move it forward. Now, some people are capable, not from intelligence perspective, but from a span of work perspective or team collaboration perspective, are capable to manage that process completely independently. That's awesome. Keep doing it, right? That doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't work for everybody, just like, you know, it doesn't work always for the founding engineer to be the CEO someday. You know, like there's you know, different skill sets, different approaches to understanding information and how that's going to work into your organization. So I would be happy to quote you for this kind of project and see if it's $1 million. Maybe it is. I don't know. But the way that I kind of disagree with this is that there are consulting groups that you can work with that are advisors. You can hire someone that's like a part-time person or a fractional advisor. You don't need to bring in a $200,000, you know, quality director or something like that, a regulatory director. To get going. There's ways to do it in such a way that it can be manageable and it can be more in an advisory pathway. I will say though, I have not done this personally, but from what my regulatory colleague would say is that, you know, walking into a pre-sub meeting with FDA, it is significantly more helpful if someone is with you that has done it before.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
so there are some, you know, benefits, but that's to say, not to say that I don't think you should. I think people can do it. Yeah.
No,
right.
I just wanted to say I was so fortunate enough, like from my internal team, I have like physician that they have in
Yeah.
process of like
That's awesome.
approving and going through the like FDA and all of that. So I was so fortunate.
Yeah.
But this is something, and I have so many, like we have so many like advisors and even like mentors off the record and on the record. So that's all good. And I was so lucky in that perspective. But something that I would be like kind of mindful of, and it's my personal experience. I have before now, I worked most of my career as a consultant. And as a consultant, not necessarily the system itself is bind to the ending results. While as a startup, your life is as in a stake for your results and quality of the product you are giving, but this is a service for the consultant. So if I wasn't fortunate enough that I could bring such a great team on board, I would definitely would go to Lisa,
Ilsa, yeah.
but I will bring her perspective as a advisory consultant, not a wall or not a block between me and my client.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just like I would go through and I would do the work, I would walk the walk and talk the talk, and I will come to her and I will say, what do you think? That would bring so much value to me, would speed up the procedure, but it would be, again, like great learning for me. So if I fail now, everyone said 90% of the startups fail. I don't believe so. But again, I could stand up stronger after I failed. So the failure is not just a bad thing that happens. If you don't learn anything, I think that's a disaster.
And I would say don't work with any consultants that would not allow that interactive relationship, because I would say that's a waste of your money. If they're like, well, here, I'll just give you a document and I'm not going to help you understand it. I'm not going to help you know what's going on. I'm not going to partner with you in that process. Don't work with them. You want to work with somebody that you can understand what the value is for their time. And some groups do like a fee for service, like, you know, you charge X amount of money and this is the result. Some do hourly, you know, so you depend on what makes sense from, you know, where you are and what situation you're in, to get the most values you can out of that relationship. Because, you know, we try to be cost effective, but it's not like super cheap, right? You still have to pay for the work. So
Sounds like FDA is complicated.
yeah.
So for things like SOC 2, I would suggest like early startups actually engage companies that help early, even if you don't fully go on board early. The trick is that it's a bit easier to get your compliance set up if you design your infrastructure forward thinking and starting a discussion early. Even if you don't pay the $10,000, $15,000 a year that they want, is a net help. And I've seen smart startups start that early.
Yeah, and I would add step by step based on my experience. Get help from your free mentor, ChatGPT.
Yes.
So you can lower the cost tremendously. So I know our time is limited, and I enjoy listening to the answers. I learn a lot from you guys. So let's probably ask this question from Andre. How do you design tech that keep up the changing rules like AI, data, or security?
Well, so I think we spoke a bit about that with the new tools. One other wrinkle that we didn't mention is that the workflows in the product change. Like AI cannot automatically be a lawyer or a doctor, right? But you can have a user in the loop, and then you basically solve 90% of the problem, and the human just reviews, and all of a sudden it's not a regulatory barrier. You actually save a lot of costs for your customer. And also the LLMs, the language models, can be used to review themselves. And from a language model perspective, it's an easier problem to review than to actually build an answer. So even a lesser model can be a good reviewer, a good LLM as judge for your product. So think also of these workflows and how you kind of redesign your product around what AI can do well and what AI is not yet allowed to do.
Anything you want to add?
It was perfect to me.
So this is the question that I love to hear the answer, Elsa. So how do you talk about the risk and compliance with investors or funders? So nowadays, when I pitch to an investor, I'm also fundraising for my company. Even before I start, this is not related to the answer. Even before I start to the pitching, they're like, okay, give me your elevator pitch first. But before that, make sure to tell me what your AI role in your company is. So I'm like, they're like, in terms of anything. So AI plus pitch decks, be prepared for that. But how do you use AI for operation? How do you use AI in your innovation? How do you use AI for everything in your business? So it's like this buzzword is very important to investors. And then sometimes they just walk away. Let me repeat that question. How do you talk about risk and compliance with investors or funders?
Yeah, I think maybe a little maybe side note on that, the AI. You probably should have that answer ready, regardless of what your technology is. But I think what I would recommend is that you know what questions need to be asked, but you don't necessarily have all the answers. So what I mean by that is you can't know everything at day one, at day 10, at 5 years down the road. But you should know what are the questions you're trying to answer to be able to address the risk and the compliance needs. And so doing that homework that I kind of mentioned before is like understand what the landscape is, understand what the pathway is going to be, so that you know, like, oh, I need to do this type of a validation work. So I know it's going to cost, should cost this amount. I don't know exactly how I'm going to get it done yet. I don't know what the results are going to be yet, but I know that I have to ask myself these questions and get answers to them before I move forward. And I think along with that is around understanding what are the highest risk areas of your product, and this can be highest risk in terms of the engineering risk. It can be the highest risk in terms of adoption, highest risk in terms of compliance or stakeholder adoption of the technology. Understanding what those risks are, and then putting as best a plan in place as you can at that moment in time to say how you're going to address those risks. And that way, your investors should then say, all right, they don't know everything yet, but I can see that they're really understanding what the steps are that they need to take to get the answers to the question. And then hopefully over time you get those answers and you can fill in the gaps in knowledge so that you can address, you'll continue to address risk and wipe it off the table. And then say, all right, now we understand what the requirements are from a compliance perspective. and this is how we're putting a plan in place with our quality management system or with our, our internal expertise or with working with a consultant or whatever, however you end up putting that in place, you have that plan in place so that they can see that you're being deliberate about it and understand that there's more that you need to do to move things forward.
And have a right dedicated estimate of cost.
Yes, right. They're going to want to know what it's going to cost and then what do you get out of that. Some of that work is just going to be like pay to play, right? You have to do the validation work. You have to do the quality management work. You have to submit, just your registration fees to FDA. Like just some of those things are just costs that are going to have to be part of the process. And so again, like having that list of questions that that are open. And then as you go, fill in the answers so that you can continue to show that progress as you go. What I would say.
Anything you want to add?
Yes, in
Thank
fact.
you.
The risk mitigation planning, as Elsa said, is so important, and it's one of the crucial steps and like plans that you should have it in your due diligence that when you are fundraising. But before that, and this is my personal experience and challenge, I don't know what it was for the other people. But before even you get to the point that you can show that how good you have a good like risk mitigation plan from your FDA, your quality control, your manufacturer, whatever, is whom you are pitching to. Because they should know the value of you are creating, and they should know already about the industry, especially the healthcare industry is so complicated, and even people who are interested so much, even some of you that you are in the room, you came here because you are so interested to the topic, you are yawning because it's too complicated.
Yeah.
Nobody has limited people have that capacity to even listen to or just get curious enough to listen to. And my first initial mistake that I was doing, I would go to an angel investor or a small VC that they have a good track of funding biopharma and life science. And I would say, okay, we are almost in a same family, but you are not. I'm medical device, I should do and go all the investors that only do medical device. So they have the already knowledge and education. So when I have a conversation rolling, it's not a learning curve for them. It's not a surprise for them, and they can understand the value that I'm bringing. Otherwise, if you start to have kind of teaching your value or how much your value you are creating, you already lost the game. So that's kind of one big kind of takeout for me. And the rest is always have if you are again medical device, have one slide in your pitch deck about your compliance. And if you're FDA, for example, if even you are not, you are FDA class 1, you're just FDA registered, why? And have the why, or you're 2, it's okay. There's a huge fear about if you're class 2 or class 3, or if you are non-exempt, you are 510K required, or you should do PMA. No, it's not an issue. But you should have crystal clear understanding and explanation based on all the regulations why you fall into this category, and the return on investment, how much it's creating value and money over going this much more complicated product rather than to cut half of your features and to go class 1. Just that.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, so that's a great point. So it's very important what type of investor you're talking to. Nowadays, family offices, they are very interested in healthcare companies, but they have their own language. I'm not talking about finance, but to my experience, they would love convertible notes, and they want to know how much you know about the FDA and regulation. So they've done their research. They want to make sure how much you know about it. And you should be prepared and do your homework, like Elsa said. We want to save some time for Q&A. So I want to add one more question that probably panelists, you can give the one tip you want to give the founders facing their first regulatory submission. What are the one tip that you want to give it to them?
So I'll give a self-serving tip. It's to apply to our Phase 0 master plan contest.
Yay.
And get a $25,000 in-kind award for either engineering or regulatory, quality, marketing, in-kind services from Simbex. So if you want more information about that contest, check me out afterwards. But the tip is you probably would guess me from what I've said so far is like try to get information early. Right, try to learn as much as you can early what those hard things are going to do, so you can understand, so you can be ready to put on a slide. You know, it is a class 1, or we think it's a class 1, but this is what we're going to do to find out if it's actually true. You know, so get that information up front as early as you can to understand that pathway.
Andre?
You have a tip?
Yeah, so my tip is something that helped me. So on the underscore Slack, I mean, do people know there's a Slack for underscore in Boston? There's a couple of Slacks that kind of startups go to. I needed some help to figure out between different vendors that help with SOC 2 compliance. And somebody had compiled like a 30-page PDF reviewing 10 of these vendors that was super helpful. So you can find it there, or if not, just contact me and I'll forward it to you. I found it very useful.
Thank you.
My tip is, again, if you do medical device, I cannot extend my recommendation for out of that, to understand, again, your pathway, your regulatory pathway. This is your life essence that will go through your company. But understand your plan B and plan C, because sometimes some even innovations would go through a gray area, because again, we have AI depend on intent of use. Even it could like have like different class settings. So make sure you have a clear description of your intent of use of your technology. And then it's the team. The core team could bring you up or take you down. So, and this is part of it comes from the chance of luck, which people you face to. But to me, it was the game changer. I couldn't be here without the team that supported me and walked the path with me. So all the credit goes to them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for, you're very on time. So let's have the Q&A now. So we have a microphone. If you have a question, we can give it to you, because this session is also virtual hybrid. So the people who are virtual can hear your question.
Testing. All right, thank you. Great panel, super excited. It's something I've always been fascinated with. The question I have is pretty tied to kind of what I was coming here about. So I liked how you framed the 3 different variables: speed, innovation, and compliance. I've heard a lot about, at least from the medical side, everything pre-approval. I'm curious in terms of the compliance and after approval. The thing that always gets me is, what's the innovation that comes after? Is it impossible? Is it just too expensive? To Andre's point, is it possible to set up your QMS regulatory pathway infrastructure so that you can actually innovate post-approval? Because that's historically what I've seen, and oftentimes people get acquired, and who cares after that? You've been acquired, and that's kind of the innovation ecosystem within at least medtech. I'm just curious if you guys have seen or have experienced a way where you can continue innovating post-approval. Thanks.
Yeah, I guess I can comment on that. One thing I'll just say, there was a new maybe code that allows for some planned iteration within your launch. So there are some new ways that for software that they say, well, we know we're going to make this change soon. Can you just approve it all as a package? and there's like this new way of doing that, which looks pretty cool. So check that out. I will say though that in the medical device space, there is like iteration is like name of the game. Like you go to a conference and they're like, "What's new? What do you have that you didn't have before? What features have you added, or what changes have you put in place?" And so innovation is 100% part of it, and should be. I would imagine your investors would want to see like what's next, and how can you grow it, and how can you offer more services, or how can you add additional functionality to your technology. But that being said, all of that would be within the same quality management system that you would have in place all along. And so sometimes it's a letter to file, and you just say, "Hey, FDA, we made this change. It's not a big deal. Here, I'm just letting you know." And they're like, "Great, fine, keep moving. Have a great day." Sometimes they're like, "You know what? That's a PMA. You got to start over again." So it does really depend on the scale and scope of the changes that you want to make. But innovation should definitely be part of that process. Imagine that same, like not even on the medical side too, where you have to like think about what's next and still be within the compliant structure.
For document processing, it's a lot easier. All these frameworks are not a block to innovation in any way, as long as you do your homework and you set up your framework, and we can talk in more detail the types of things that you set up, but it's a lot simpler.
And I will say, though, I was working with a client to help their team better understand the medical device industry, where a bunch of them came from the software development side of things, and they were used to agile and like quick iteration. They're like, "Can't we just launch this one? Like, we're going to launch a new version next week." And they're like, let's go. And the medical device colleagues were like, "Whoa, like, wait a minute, we got to get this all ready to go."
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of,
So software is delivered as software as a service. It's just continuous release. You're not stopping to do it, but you have your unit tests and your whole pipelines that actually check the debug path and so on.
Yeah.
For
yeah.
medical devices, it's different.
Right. You can still move quickly as long as you do all the documentation and get the approvals that need to happen. So
Yeah, make sure you have the documentation in place, and you have the line of communication with FDA. Even though after you are FDA approved, you are compliant to have the general controls and special controls. And if you have an innovation, it will falls under the special control that you should there is the time intervals, depends what you do, that you should report it to the FDA. But for example, if you are like class 2 and you already are operating and you are already in market, you have a new innovation, again, you should file the case, and intent of use, it's so important for FDA. And based on that, you can keep the same class. Usually you keeping same class, you wouldn't fall down, or you might go higher. But again, it's nothing like impossible to do, which the key is to be consistent over the common line of communication.
with a caveat is if you go the 510K route, which is faster, less than a clinical trial and everything. When you are submitting for the 510K, you're essentially telling the world that this product is exactly the same as everything else that's out in the same product class.
Yeah.
And so the innovation piece of it is a little trickier in that context. So you do have to reflect on, like what is the new product,
Yeah.
and is it the same as what's already
That's
been.
a de novo path.
Yeah.
So you are filing de novo. It means that you cannot piggyback right over an innovation that's already in FDA, and you should go through the new creation of the category based on your innovation. But it's all possible. Give it 18 months.
And as I say to everyone when I talk on the medical device space, the answer to most of these questions is it depends.
Yeah,
It's like
it's all depends.
Yeah.
And just if you have the clinical trial, to make sure you submit your Q submission over the IDE. So if you go through the pre-market approval, class 3.
Thank you. Any more questions?
All right. Hi. This was a great talk. I'm really happy to be here. So I have a question in regards to healthcare IT software. What kind of regulatory domain knowledge research should you offload to another person? I know you kind of touched on that already, but as a founder, I can't be sitting around all day, every day, just doing research, as much as I want to be very well informed. So as an early stage startup, is there any research you would offload to someone else?
Yeah, it's really getting acquainted with the framework, with HIPAA and SOC 2. Maybe have a co-founder or a partner or somebody on the team that can offload some of that work. In my case, I kind of have to figure out alone, and I use my friends, the language models. They're very fluent in this stuff. It's amazing what you can do. Like even like simple contracts, they just draft it for. It's also a bit scary.
Yeah.
There is one in front of room. I think at the-
Yeah, hello. So Michael Davis, full disclosure, I'm also in the consulting business, but I wanted to give also some advice to the startups here with my 24 years in the health tech industry. So I think everything starts also from your strategy. Are you going to plan to bring the product really to the market and commercialize it, or are you looking for a buyout, right? Because if you're planning your strategy to go to commercialize it, then my recommendation, seeing a lot of startups failing, but even big companies with their projects, is bring in the design input, the design or the theoretical architecture design of the product really right after the ideation. Bring in all the different disciplines, because I have many projects seeing failing because manufacturing has been neglected, and all the engineers designed the best product in the world, but no one can buy it because it's too expensive, right? It's over-engineered. So that's what I've seen many, many times, even in corporations. So that's my advice to you. And the last comment, there's also, if you have a cool product that doesn't exist on the market yet in the health tech environment, you can also ask the FDA to help you. There are certain breakthrough innovations, and there's a very good example here in this neighborhood, Insulet. I know many people know that company probably. They would have not been successful with not co-developing with the FDA. They basically helped them to really go to this stage of being successful, innovative, and they now dominate the market. But they paved the way together with the FDA to have this cool, really helpful, life-changing, innovative product in the market, but with the help of the FDA. So there are also these ways. So that's my
FDA
comment.
is so collaborative.
Yeah.
I don't know. They have a
Don't
bad
be
rap.
scared of them.
Don't be scared of them. They kind of have a bad rep, but they are great. Like if you have a good documentation and a good line of conversation starting, especially start from 513G, they are great people, and they truly want to help the healthcare system. So
Thank you. And we
Yeah.
had, yeah.
I was looking to follow up on that, like, though, you may personally want to sell your technology to someone else and get a buyout and just make a lot of money and walk away. You may want to get acquired by, a big company to do that, or some other mechanism to do that. You may want to say, I want to build a sales force. I want to take this and be a CEO and run this company. Either way, you should be doing this work, because it's really building the value proposition. It's either the value proposition for the investor to see that value, for the strategic investor, the strategic acquirer to see the value, or it's building the story to tell the hospital, like, this is the reason why this is a valuable product. So I think it is important to understand your end game, but I think you need to have all of these aspects covered either way. So I know we have 30 seconds left. Are we done?
We have one question.
He's just been waiting patiently.
He has been waiting for
he's
that.
waiting from the first round. So
Oh, okay.
Just give me one.
We'll be fast.
This, I think, has some overlap with Marjan and also Andre. Specifically, at the outset of a task, how granular are you in your kind of definitions for what should be accomplished? For example, when you set out with Claude Code to define something, how granular is your prompt? Do you find that you have more success when it's over abstract, or when you really gotten down to the details? Likewise, when you were using AI to detect pressure injuries, did you know what you were going to find before you kind of set out to get it?
Yes.
So I'll just answer quick because we're almost out of time. The language models are great if you give them the right context. Now it's a problem of context engineering. You want to be as detailed as you want in the prompt, basically. But at some point, the prompts collect, and then you need to summarize or have the agent summarize the prompt. I'm happy to talk more about it offline.
So just quickly about myself, yes, like there is all the signs that there is studies, like years of studies over the like medical significance or diagnosis part that you should go through, and many other elements that it's easy to track, and that's why we use thermal mapping system. But I will be happy to answer it later. I wouldn't have time after this session, but would be happy to get connected over LinkedIn or email me. I will set up a time.
Thank you both.
Thank you for joining us today. And also, based on my experience, these sessions are recorded and would be on the YouTube channel for Startup Boston if you want to watch it over.
A huge thank you to our speakers.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we have a lot more in store for both today and the rest of the week. Very specifically, at 6:30 tonight, we have the Ecosystem Fair, where there are over 20 resources in the startup community, including government organizations, accelerators, and networking groups. The next session in this room is Closing the Gap, Recruiting and Upskilling for AI Success. If you are interested in that, you can stick around. But otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day and rest of Startup Boston Week.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah.